The film which you are about to see is an account of the tragedy which befell a group of 5 youths. In particular, Sally Hardesty.
On the
and her
afternoon of
invalid
August
brother,
18th,
Franklin.
1973,
It is only
5 young
more
people in a
tragic
Volkswagen
than
van ran
known.
out of gas on a farm road
But
in
had they
South
lived
Texas.
very,
4 of them
very
never
long.
seen
On
again.
August 18th,
The next morning, the woman
1973,
survivors,
Sally Hardesty,
were
her invalid
inspected
brother
on the
Franklin,
roadside.
and her friends fell foul of a bizarre
Sally
chemical
said she
experiment.
was on a little
chainsaw-wielding
river.
theft.
The girls had been
soul
sold
and
to
body
to ignite
a
the
cannibal
world's
family in an
imagination.
Private healthcare
Chainsaw
in the
Massacre.
United States.
Oil storage units continue to burn out of control at the huge Texaco refinery near the Texas-Louisiana border. 3 storage units exploded into flames during the night, killing at least 3 workers and injuring a dozen more. Firefighting units from 3 Texas cities continue to battle the Holocaust in an effort to confine 40.
All right, hello everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of Yet Another Movie Podcast. I am Shane Wallach, and I'm with...
Sean Higgins.
And what are we talking about today, Sean?
We are talking about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Technically
Series.
the whole franchise.
Yeah.
Specifically the original, the second one, the Platinum Dunes ones, and the new Leatherface movie that just came out.
Yeah, we're going to focus on those, just to narrow it down,
Yeah.
because this is a kind of a big franchise. But, yeah, well, why don't we start out with how we both came to the franchise, then we'll jump in.
Absolutely.
So, Sean, when did you first come upon Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Sure. I believe this was... I was around 16, 17. And I'd been going through a lot of these classic horror movies in my teenage years. And I'd always wanted to see this one, but I wasn't allowed to. And it was like, it must have been when I was 17, because I think I was finally allowed to just watch whatever I wanted to watch. And so I, of course, did. And I watched this movie. And I really, really liked it. Mm-hmm. It took multiple watchings for me to get to where I am now, where it's like one of my all-time favorite horror films. The first time I was like, this is a great movie. I don't get it. Why it's considered the best. One of the best. Now I do. I think my teenage self was an idiot, but whatever.
As we often do.
Yeah, it's just one of those things, you know. I think I just thought it was a different kind of movie, and it threw me. I think is what it was,
It's not
honestly.
the Halloween type.
This is,
That's
yeah,
what you're
and
used
I think
to.
that's honestly all it was. And after seeing it, I also watched the entire series when I was in high school around that same time. Up to, you know, the ones that existed. So minus the last 2. And yeah, I've seen all these films before, except this new one. So yeah, it's a series that I don't particularly love the whole series of, but there are specific ones that I absolutely love. So we'll get into that more, but I definitely love this original movie.
Yeah. As for me, I'm going to admit some blasphemy here. I saw the remake first. Sorry. What was that?
You want a little help? When I first saw the remake, I liked it better.
Okay. I didn't necessarily think that. Because, I saw the remake first. I went into this horror phase around when I was 16, 17. I guess that's a regular thing for most people. I don't know.
I guess.
But yeah, I focused on more newer films. I don't know why. I think it was just what I was exposed to more on. There was more on TV. You know, a lot more new films on TV than old films that I encountered.
Sure.
For whatever reason. So those are the films I usually went for. But then it came to the time where I was like, oh, you know, I've heard that there was an original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I was like, oh, I'm kind of interested in that. What is that like? So one day, I think I was like 18 or something, I popped it in. And from then on, my love affair of this film began. This quickly became and still remains my favorite slasher movie of all time. I think it's an excellent film, and I've seen it, you know, probably 7 or 8 times by now, and it still holds up just as well. It's a really fantastic movie, but we're gonna get into that obviously. So yeah, that's how we came to it. Now should we jump in?
Yeah.
Okay. So first of all, John, any production details you want to know?
Sure. So this is Tobe Hooper's second film. He was a director he came from Texas. Unlike a lot of directors that come from either Hollywood or New York, maybe, or even Chicago, bigger areas. He came from Houston, Texas, I believe. He went to University of Texas there. This is his second film. He filmed another film a couple years before called Eggshells, a little scene film. I haven't even been able to get my hands on it. I wish I could have before this, but Anyway, he then wanted to make a horror movie, and the idea kind of came from him because of a couple things. One, the news media at the time with, the Vietnam War, which we'll get into that. And also just kind of a funny story. He was in a hardware store one time, and the line was really long, and he was getting tired of waiting, and he saw a rack of chainsaws, and he thought, wow, I wish I could just mow this line down just so I could get to the front. And that's where the idea came, I guess. So that's a fun little tidbit I found researching this movie. And yeah, this was all shot in Texas around 72, 73. Got released in 74. We'll get into more of the details as we talk for the movie. But this came after a time when horror had gone away from like the sci-fi films and the gothic imagery of like the Universal monsters or the Hammer films, and really became more almost realistic horror. I mean, okay, sure, some of these examples aren't realistic in a sense. It wasn't
as stylistic as
I guess that's a good way to say it, yeah. It became more drive-in movie theaters. Night of the Living Dead being a big one that really championed that and changed, basically put horror in the drive-in and just really opened the gateway for a lot of independent horror directors.
Then, as for slasher movies, it was this movie and Black Christmas, and then eventually Halloween that really propelled the slasher genre forward,
Right.
which slasher was easily the dominant genre in horror in the 80s, and even,
this is
that.
definitely a prototype of the slasher genre, although it doesn't feel like that in some ways, but in some ways because it's like, it's a family unit instead of one masked killer going around killing people. And we'll get into it, but Leatherface isn't exactly the same kind of thing as Michael Myers. But it is, in a lot of ways, also a prototype. You're right. I think it just really... This film in particular really set a template for what horror would look like in years to come. The cliched idea of a horror film, a bunch of youths getting lost somewhere, really started here. So, yeah.
And continues to this day.
Yes, it does.
Through many, many sequels. No, I'm just kidding. So, let's start out talking about the movie, what we love so much about it. Like, what are our favorite parts and elements of Texas Chainsaw Massacre? So, I'll kick us off. One of the things I really loved, I always loved about the movie, was the way it opens. It's a fantastic opening. First of all, you get this opening crawl with some narration by John Larroquette, who is very well known for his voiceovers in movie trailers and such. Basically going over what is purported to be a true story, which is actually a funny thing because that's what propelled this movie so much into the success. This is before the days of the internet. You can't just look it up and see if it's true or not, right? These people actually might have thought, hey, this may have actually happened. Is this actually a true story? Well, we don't know, but that's kind of the cool thing about it. Same thing happened with Blair Witch Project years later.
Yep. And the truth of it is, it isn't based on an actual true story, but it is inspired by a real serial killer, Ed Gein from Wisconsin.
Very loosely inspired.
Very loosely. He never killed anyone with a chainsaw.
But the thing is, people thought that this was an actual true story, which it wasn't. But it adds a lot of credibility to the film, and because of the way the film is shot in this kind of cinema verite documentary style, the whole movie kind of lends itself to thinking this is kind of like a legend, like this might have actually happened back in Texas in 1973. And in fact, even with the age, it even gets better. As we get more distant from it, it's like, wow, this is some kind of like folktale almost.
Yeah, and even when you know that, it's still like, it feels like you're watching some snuff film. Like, okay, sure, this doesn't happen, but God, does it look like 100% like how it would probably happen if it were to happen. Like real crimes of this sort of real murders, like real snuff films. It feels like you're watching a snuff film, and that's what makes it so dang scary.
Yeah. But back to the opening. And then the first shot of the movie is fantastic. It's like this weird, like macabre construction of body parts above a grave.
Yeah.
And it's just a slow shot of zooming out, and you get some radio exposition about how these people have been digging up graves in local cemeteries and exhuming the bodies and stealing the body parts, which is already like your mystery, part of your brain goes off. You're like, this is really intriguing. Who would do this? This is already setting off those alarms. Like, this is really strange, And the way they deliver exposition, remember, this is before this news clip thing became a cliche. right? Because now it's kind of a cliche to deliver a bunch of exposition at the beginning. Oh, just show a bunch of news clips, you know?
Right.
That will just explain it all. You know,
Yeah.
This was actually the time when this was brand new. And it's really effective because you just get that sound of the radio. It's very quiet, calm opening, but it's got this weird kind of creepiness to it. And then you go into the credits itself, and boy, I love the credits because the radio keeps playing over the credits, and some of the stories aren't even related, but it's got this creepy score going on to it. Mm-hmm. Also, these dark, like stark red visuals of something, just this deep red, and you get those credits, and it's like one of the best opening credit designs I've ever seen. It's just opening credits. What they should do is they should hype you up in the mood for the movie, get you into the feel of the film, and get you into the universe and kind of swallow you up so you're ready to absorb, the film in front of you. And these credits do it perfectly.
Oh, yeah. I agree completely. It adds to the realism. It makes it feel like an actual news report that would have happened at the time. And part of that is because obviously they were using equipment at the time. Now I agree. It gets better with age because now it really has that old-timey feel, which makes it even creepier because it's all old.
Yeah, because we're more removed from it. You could easily think, maybe this did happen. And I think that's even going to get even better as time goes on. I think this film is going to age wonderfully.
Yeah.
Which is great because it's a great movie.
Sure, we have the internet. You can look it up. But it's like, even without that, it still works.
Yeah.
And who cares if it's not real? It's still terrifying because you can see it happening. This is totally believable.
Yeah, and it's scary. All right, Sean, what's an element you liked?
One of the elements I like. I love just the gritty, grungy, dirty horror look and the juxtaposition. Really, the cinematography in general of Daniel Pearl, who would go on to. They brought him back for the remake. Platinum Dunes did very, very smartly. And the way he did the cinematography in this movie, I love how it juxtaposes, this beautiful, like, warm Texas landscape with the horrors that are going on in this house. And just the gritty darkness. And even when they're showing, the outside nice Texas landscape, there's still an ominous, foreboding feel when they're driving along and every shot is like the van going left to right, picking up the hitchhiker and all this stuff. And there's still like that ominous feel to the whole film in each frame. And I think, thank God they got Daniel Pearl. He did an incredible job with what he had, which wasn't a lot to work with.
Yeah.
But it shows what you can do when you just know what you're doing and you make do with what you have and you don't overextend your budget.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. An element for me that I really like, I absolutely love the production design of this film. The design of the house itself it was extremely detailed, thorough. They had members of the crew digging around local ranches for carcasses of animals just to throw around the house to give it this look of just decaying and death. There's a time when Sally Hardesty is literally in this room covered with bones all over the floor, and it's like, wow, that's just so creepy. I mean, just thinking about being in that situation, it's just terrifying. And just the whole look of the house is just like, it's this just dark and menacing house. In fact, there's a shot of approaching the house with Sally just sort of looming in the background as Sally just slowly, like, meekly walks up to it, and it's like, this is how you shoot a house to make it look menacing.
Oh, yeah.
Movies like The Conjuring and Amityville Horror kind of parodied this sort of style of making the house look like this domineering presence, but that's really what this movie feels like. And again, the production design is fantastic within the house. Everything looks great. Everything looks lived in. It looks real. You buy it, and it's creepy as heck. So that's kind of the point.
Yeah. Some of those bones, like, they didn't just, like, find it. I mean, yeah, they also found animals around the roads and in farms and stuff. They also went to, like, not a pet store, but, like one of those pounds where they have, like, animals. And basically they took the carcasses and bones of, like, animals that have been put down and put them around the set. So that's even more creepy. And there's all these intricate designs that Robert Burns, who is the art director, made. Like, there's a couch that is like bones along the entirety of the couch. It's so creepy, but it's like in that creepy way, it's also like really cool that this guy came up with all these ideas for the set design of the movie. It's like, dude, you are creative in a very morbid sense, but good job for this. Hey, works for this movie, man.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and let's see, something else I like. I like the simplicity of it all. And while the plot itself sounds cliched now, like we mentioned, it's been done to death. You know, it's to the point where people joke in real life. You know, if your car breaks down the side of the road, especially at night, it's like, oh, this is where we're going to find the killer, right?
Yeah.
But I love that it is so simplistic, and it's also a slow build. And there's so many times there are like little hints to them. Maybe you shouldn't go to this house, or maybe you should just keep driving, or get out of there. And just the way it sets up the intrigue of it. Like, first of all, we get the hitchhiker, who is a character that a lot of people love at Leatherface. I love Leatherface, but no one talks about the hitchhiker, so I want to talk about. And hold on, I want to make sure I get your name right. Sorry, Edwin Neal. Sorry.
Okay.
Edwin Neal did a fantastic job playing this very deranged, creepy, unsettling guy who is just, from the very beginning when they pick him up, he's already a little weird, but then he slowly reveals, oh, he's straight up out of his mind. Yeah, you can't trust this guy. To the point
of attacking them.
He literally cuts Franklin. And he's a terrifying character, and I think Edwin Neal did an amazing job in that role. And then, as the story continues, we get more warnings from the guy at the gas station, who turns out to be a little more than he seems. And then when they get to the house, even just finding weird stuff around outside, that it's like, okay, maybe we should keep moving and not go to this house to ask for gas.
Yeah.
And I think it sets a very unsettling, creepy tone. It's just like, oh God, I don't want to see what happens next. What the hell could possibly happen next? And then it just escalates until we get to Leatherface. And God,
yeah, like you said, the slow build is really effective because you get a nice feel for these characters and that feeling of foreboding that extends through the movie, and you're kind of wondering when it's going to happen because you know what's going to happen, but it's like that kind of ominous build. It keeps increasing and increasing, and the tension builds more and more, and then when it does happen, it actually feels like a payoff because you've had that long to really kind of worry about when it's going to occur, which is great. It's really well designed film in that way, where it takes a while, because a lot of films, they want to grab your attention right away and like say, oh no, look how violent and horrific we are.
If this was a modern horror film, we'd have seen like the family kill someone at the beginning of the film, or
you
something.
Would open with them or something. Yeah,
like just some generic character getting murdered or something. But no, we start with these kids going to find their grandparents, or two of the kids' grandparents, and see if they're still buried or if they've been dug up too. That's an ominous thought.
Yeah.
Is there something else that you would well, there are many things we
both
like.
Plenty of stuff.
What else would you like to bring up?
in the sense of not wanting to talk forever about this movie.
Sure.
First of all, is there anything you don't like about the film? Is there any negatives for you, or because we always have to bring this up just in case?
It ends. No. I don't know. It'd probably be nitpicky stuff. I don't think there's anything that really stands out as like
I understand sort of like the character
problem.
Of Franklin's a little hit or miss for people.
I think that's the only thing that I wouldn't even say it's a major problem, but he does push my buttons a little bit. Fortunately, by the time he's pushing my buttons, he's about to die.
Just the way that his character is portrayed is a little annoying. I don't know if it's the actor or the dialogue or whatever, but there's elements to that, but it really doesn't get to me that much because
from what I researched, it is the actor doing what he was told to do.
Yeah,
and he actually acted like an annoying prick on set just to keep that character up, so no one liked him.
Oh, that's fair. That makes sense. Okay, but point is, it doesn't really bother me that much because, it's not that bad, and in the scheme of things, you're focusing on other things, right?
Yeah, I don't think it ruins the film. I could understand why it does for a couple people. I've heard that sentiment, but for me it's fine.
Yeah.
One thing I love is that this movie's actually bloodless, even though it has that title. There's like no gore or blood in it. It's all implied,
which is funny because the reason why is they tried to heavily edit it to try and get a PG rating, and it
I don't know
work.
what That's the only thing I can think of. That is the thought of someone that is completely new to filmmaking and doesn't understand how the MPAA works, because there's no way in heck,
remember, this is before
especially in the
PG-13.
70s, they would do that.
Yeah, this is before PG-13, so there's
Yeah.
just PG and R, and as PG was a lot more
I mean,
R
sure,
then.
Jaws got a PG, but that doesn't have nearly the amount of
just
grotesque
the torture,
violence
and
implied.
scenes,
Yeah,
is
exactly.
enough. But yeah, actually, the interesting thing is there's a lot of analysis going on about the violence. It's kind of trying to say, a lot of people have said that it's kind of trying to say something about our culture of violence, right? Like, basically because you have to imagination as to fill in some of the violent scenes. It's talking about, it's kind of critiquing, how society views violence and all that. And, I think there are a lot of deep layers to this film that you can peel back and you can start thinking about it philosophically, which is interesting because, a lot of slasher movies, they're just dumb movies where people get to run around getting killed. But as Tobe Hooper admits himself, he tried to inject some dark comedy in there, and I see it. I definitely see it. From time to time, like the grandpa character. I mean, he's kind of comedic in general in the film.
It definitely becomes more overt in the second one. We'll get to that. But yeah, there is like little elements of comedy.
There's hints there and there.
It's definitely overshadowed by the horror of it all, which is why it's hard to really find it funny.
Correct.
But yes.
But yeah, I appreciate that. And this film is a deep film, and I think it is one that you could really analyze and get into the nitty gritty. So maybe
it honestly is, yeah.
So maybe if we ever did a film analysis series, this would be one of the ones to go through. But as for right now, I don't have any other problems. So
yeah, I love also that, like, there are scenes that still make me cringe, even though I've seen this movie many times. Like when Kirk gets to that door and we finally see Leatherface, and he just hits him with the hammer. That makes me cringe just thinking about it. Or when they put his girlfriend on the hook. Mm-hmm. Brilliantly shot, thank God.
Yeah.
Tobe Hooper's initial idea was to show the hook coming out the front. Thank God. Robert Burns said, basically convinced him, don't do that. It'll be better. Plus, it's going to be too hard to film that also. Yeah. And that worked much to its benefit. And we should probably talk about the dinner scene.
Well,
too.
I loved... Okay, real quick, because we don't want to talk about this forever.
Right, I know.
Real quick, I just want to talk about Leatherface. The design of him, I think, is fantastic. He's a very creepy-looking character. He's very unpredictable because of his mental state. I know
he's imposing, absolutely.
We're going to talk about Leatherface. Now that might change how we view Leatherface. But in the original, I think Gunnar Hansen says that he intended him to be a mentally challenged person.
Yeah, he went to a hospital where they had them, and
he went to
basically
view how mentally challenged people behave and tried to emulate that in his performance.
It was to the point, apparently, the doctors weren't sure if he was one of the patients or just someone who was visiting. So that's pretty funny. And he did an excellent job acting in this film.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, he's a very menacing presence, just because of that childlike unpredictability he has.
Yeah, it scared one of the actors in a scene. The third guy that goes in, it scared him so bad that he actually ruined the shot by running away when he was supposed to get hit by the hammer and fall down.
It's really funny.
It was really funny.
The dinner scene, we can talk about that because the film was notoriously a difficult shoot. They shot 7 days a week, all day, every day, to minimize on production costs. It was swelteringly hot inside the house. I mean, they're shooting actually in this house in Texas.
In Texas, in August, the hottest month in Texas, as I've been told.
So it's humid, it's hot, and they're shooting this dinner scene, which is just this disgusting room and this really grotesque scene. And, there are things that are going wrong. So, I mean, there's a famous story about... Hold on. Story about Sally Hardesty's finger, that they're trying to cut her finger, but the blood bag wouldn't squirt out at the proper time, so Tobe Hooper's like, just cut her actual finger. Just actually cut it. And then it's funny, Tobe Hooper said after production, he's like, it took them, the cast and crew, several months to forgive me for what I put them through.
Yeah,
because it was a notoriously difficult shoot. But I think what we're going to get to in the dinner scene is it pays off because this scene is intense. It is visceral. I think that's the best word to use.
Yeah, you can feel whatever sweat and smells that's going on while filming. You feel it all coming through the screen, and it makes it so visceral and terrifying.
Yeah, because when the characters are sweating, they're actually sweating.
Oh, yeah,
the actors are sweating. Absolutely. They're not spraying their heads with anything. No, this is actually that hot. And I feel like... You know how actors can find it easier to get in a role when they're actually in the situation that they're supposed to be in?
I think it proves very well for Marilyn Burns. Oh my gosh.
This film proves that. They really got into their roles.
I love the last shot when she's people who were going to spoil it, whatever.
I think we already spoiled the crap
Yeah,
out of
you're
this
right.
film.
When she escapes and she's in the truck and she's laughing all hysterically, that is actually the actress saying, "I can't believe I have to keep shooting this damn movie." Like, because she was so tired by this, because this was after the dinner shooting and everything. So
Yeah.
it was really funny. But yeah, it paid off. I mean, Tobe Hooper made a classic. It's unfortunate that we will never know how much the movie made, because turns out the distribution company was run by the mafia, and a lot of money ended up going to them instead of the people who were working on the film and the box office. So that's unfortunate.
But it did make well over, I think, reportedly, well over 10 times its budget. Just,
Yes.
flat back. So, I mean, it did make a hefty profit and did justify eventually a sequel.
Yep.
Which
came out 12 years after this. Tobe Hooper initially didn't want to direct.
well,
but
hold on, because we're going to finish up.
I'm sorry.
We're going to finish up the original.
I thought that was a segue. I'm sorry.
It was going to be, but first of all, let's just say with the original, it's a really amazing movie. I definitely recommend everybody check it out. Don't let the age fool you. It's not a movie that looks dated. It looks like it could have come out this year as like a sort of ode to the past type film, but it's really scary. It's really intense. Nothing is dated in the film. Everything's real, and everything looks, really scary and creepy, and it really gets you into the world.
Yeah, I agree. This movie is a terrifying movie. This is one of the few horror films that still scares me upon rewatch.
And and even if you don't like slasher movies, I feel like there's something to get out of this, because again, like we said, it's not a very violent film. It's like it's a gross movie, and it's got a lot of like creepiness to it, but it's not like overtly violent. You're not going to see a lot of people's limbs getting chopped off like you might think.
It's really implied violence, and that's what makes you, when you remember it being more violent than it actually is in the moment.
Because like I said before, you're going to have to, your imagination kind of fills in the blanks. But yeah, I really recommend everyone see it. It's above your typical slasher film, I think.
Absolutely. I think this is a masterpiece of horror. It's a classic for a reason. It's one of my favorites. Yeah, definitely check this one out.
All right, now you can move into
Sorry, that's the scene too perfect. Okay, so the sequel came out 12 years after the original. Tobe Hooper initially didn't want to direct it, but Cannon Films, which got the rights, basically, they had a 3-picture deal with him. He before this made Life Force, which admittedly I haven't seen. I know it's a cult film. Still need to get around to seeing that one. And then he made Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. And then after this, Invaders from Mars, which is a remake of a 50s movie. Yep. So he made this film, and he wanted to basically... He was kind of bummed that people didn't really get the comedy in the original film. So he wanted to basically just go, okay, this is going to be a dark comedy.
Yeah, straight up.
And yeah, it's definitely obviously a dark comedy.
And the studio didn't want this, but because
they were expecting a horror film, so they were really mad at Tobe Hooper for that.
He did have creative control. He was able to get away with it.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, first thing I'll say about this movie, it's drastically different than the original. Do not see it if you want to look, for a traditional sequel like for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I would not think about this movie at all in that way.
Ironically, though, it's the best sequel of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series.
Of the original series, I don't think that's really deniable.
Of any of them. Any of the sequels. I'm not talking about the remake. I'm talking about the sequels, and yeah.
Well, which there are 5. No,
5.
4.
Okay, sequels
and
prequels. There we go.
5.
So, it's the third best in the series, I would say.
It is the third best in the series, but that's not saying a lot.
Fair enough. I guess we...
Okay, so this movie has a lot of problems, and these problems do impact enjoyment, and it's definitely a weird movie, and I think if you're a fan of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original does not necessitate you're going to be a fan of this movie. In fact, it might be detrimental, which we'll talk about here. But I will say, start out with positives, right? We'll start with positives. The movie is well shot. The movie is well made. Is the production design from the original? It's back. They have some really cool sets in this. There's like this like mountaintop like mausoleum for this old like dead body, and it's like the creepiest looking thing ever. That's cool. I know. Just those details are really cool. The performances are also still good. Dennis Hopper as this over the top ridiculous
Oh, yeah.
Former cop is like the silliest thing ever, but it fits in the movie, so it's fine. They also bring back the actor's name. I'm sure you're about to give me the meat shop guy from the original.
Jim Sido.
Yeah, thank you. They brought him back to give some continuity to the series.
And this is also Bill Moseley's first movie. He's a genre actor. He hasn't really done much outside the horror and action genres, but he is very well known by genre fans, and he is fantastic as Chop Top, who is the replacement of the hitchhiker character.
I have no idea what this is. So
okay, he's in a lot of Rob Zombie movies and a lot of other horror movies.
That makes sense.
So
okay,
yes.
I know that. Yeah. Yeah. So I wanted to say that. There are a couple moments that are actually creepy, like when Leatherface shows up to the radio station. That's a little creepy, when the...
Oh, gosh. That made me jump the first time I saw it.
Yeah.
When they're just next to this room that's completely black.
And then all of a sudden Leatherface
Chop Top is just
out
distracting you and the main character. And then Leatherface just comes out full blaring the chainsaw. It's like, oh my gosh.
Whoa, where'd that come from? But it worked. It worked well. Anything from you that you really liked?
Things I like.
Yeah.
I actually like this movie a pretty decent amount, honestly.
Okay.
I think we're going to disagree a little bit about this one. I like the dark comedy tone. I enjoy dark comedies, and this is it's a fun one. It's absolutely, I agree, a completely different film from the original. But I like that Tobe Hooper just try and do the original again.
Well, I will explain myself. So I guess I'll talk about what I had problems with, and you can justify it.
Sure.
Number one, this movie, my biggest problem with this movie is it makes Leatherface not scary. It makes him look like a sort of like over-the-top cartoon character, like a clown almost. He behaves in like ridiculous ways. They call him Leatherface, which bothers me. Like, hey, Leatherface! It's like...
Get him, Leather! Get him, Leather!
Why would they call him that? It's just a little strange. They never did that in the original, and I just didn't like...
Yeah, they don't even really have a name for him in the original, do they?
They don't say any name for him.
Yeah.
Which I liked, He's just this kind of animal who's there, with them almost. But this Leatherface, so awkward, and like his relationship with the other... the guy who has the metal head.
Chop Top.
Chop Top, thank you. Chop Top, this is like... he's another problem I have with the movie. He's just so over the top.
Oh,
so crazy.
I love Chop
because
Top.
what they do in the original with the meat guy, he's over the top, but like just enough to where you can still buy him as a legitimate like character, like in this world, but still you can kind of get that over the top, a little silliness and kookiness out of him. With this one, they just go full blown. This is ridiculous, So, as a fan of the horror elements of the original, and I want to watch these movies as scary movies in general, I just don't like the change. I just don't like the complete shift to dark comedy. I'm saying, as a dark comedy, does it work? Well, yeah, some elements do work, and it is some like slightly chuckle-worthy at times. I wouldn't call this movie laugh out loud funny.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting film. It's definitely not a boring movie, so that's why I give it credit. It's not boring. It never bored me. But it did pull me out of it, and it did bother me because I liked the original so much. And it was distracting me because it wasn't scary. It wasn't anything like the original. And it belittled Leatherface, which I really didn't like.
Okay.
So I'll let you respond.
Yeah, let's see. First of all, I think I am more into dark comedy horror films. I feel like that's fair to say than you, possibly. So that might be more why I'm getting into this film so much. I agree Leatherface is more silly, more cartoonish, sure. I
Even
think
like
that's,
makes this noise like...
I think that's I know. It fits the tone for this film, though, which is why I kind of don't mind it. It would be weird if we had the same original Leatherface amongst this silliness where they're blatantly talking about like we're selling chili at like a chili cook-off, and it's obvious that there's human meat in here, and it wins best trope. Like, that's funny to me.
Yeah, of course it is. I'm just saying you cannot remove it from the original. It's just impossible for me to do because I love the original so much. So I'm going to be thinking about the original.
That's fine.
Because they're directly connected. I just don't know how not to do that. And then with the tone difference being so massive, I mean, if you compare like this to like the Evil Dead franchise, yeah, Evil Dead, it's a horror movie, but it's got a lot of like kooky silliness in it, you know, even the original.
I mean, the original has, okay, we're going to make that comparison real quick. The original does have some kooky silliness, but it still gets really dark. I mean,
of course.
Horribly. And then Evil Dead 2, you have him like sawing off his own hand after it comes alive.
The difference is, I think, because there is no Leatherface character, right? There's no central character that is terrifying in the original and then is made into like this comedic clown in the sequel. I don't think Evil Dead 2 did that. It's taking more of an environment and a world and kind of a mystical, you know, magic and all of that, voodoo or whatever, and you know, making more light of that, which is not as, you know, which is a bit different because you can kind of see them as different movies more. It's harder to separate these two for me. Now, whether or not it has to do with, I think Evil Dead 2 is just a flat out better movie than Texas Chainsaw.
Oh, I'm not saying that.
That's good.
Yeah.
The movie is funnier. The movie is better made. The movie is better.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this is like some masterpiece, underrated film or something.
So that's what I'm saying too. I think that is a part of it. If there was a fantastic dark comedy, I think it would have been different. But for me, it's like a decent dark comedy, but also unfortunately is associated with my favorite slasher movie. It's like if they took Halloween for you and made it into this kooky, like made Michael Myers like into this clown.
Sure.
You know?
To be fair, even though it's on Michael, Halloween 3 is a kooky kind of B-movie horror film. That has
a completely different topic. We'll get to Halloween 3 eventually.
Oh, we absolutely will.
But I'm just saying, it does not make Michael Myers into this clown.
Sure.
Right?
Okay.
Who you're not scared of anymore at all. I mean, because Michael Myers is all about this presence, right? That's the whole point of his creepiness. And I feel like Leatherface has a very similar creepiness to him. Just his domination on screen makes him scary to me.
Leatherface is scary because he is unpredictable because of his, like, being a psychopath that is also...
It's subjective why he's creepy. I mean, it's creepy for different things. I mean, I should admit, I'm terrified of chainsaws. Like,
well, fair enough.
Here's a funny side story. There's a game called Resident Evil 5, and it's the 5th entry in this Resident Evil series, which you've probably heard of, okay?
No, never heard of this one.
It's not like this tiny series. Well, anyway, in the game, there are these guys who have the burlap sacks from...
Friday the
13th Part 2. But they're kind of wrapped around their head, and they're like tall and lanky, and they have chainsaws.
Oh yeah, I remember this.
And when I played it with my friend, I'm like, just count me out for this round. I'm going to be running and screaming like a baby because he has a chainsaw. And I'm not even kidding. That's what I did. I would run away and like screech at the top of my lungs whenever the chainsaw guy came near me.
Oh my gosh.
So that's me and chainsaws. I'm just going to say. So yes, I am predisposed to be scared of this instrument of death, which we'll talk about more in the remake. But I just want to say that. So I guess maybe we just view the movie differently.
I think that's the case. I personally love Bill Moseley in this movie as Chop Top. I think it's a fun replacement for the Hitchhiker. It's not scary, but I think he has a lot of quotable, hilarious lines, honestly. I love his interaction with Stretch, who she's not bad for a main character heroine. She's actually fine.
I just really like Dennis Hopper. I'll say that.
And Dennis Hopper is awesome.
Because when he shows up in the house with all those chainsaws, singing,
what it's
like, bring the thing home. What is it like? Bring the.
Well, he's saying, "Bring it down, bring the devil's home down," or something.
No,
but what's the song he's singing?
He's singing about bringing like the sheep home. Or something.
Bringing in the sheep. He's like. And then, like, the Chop Top starts singing, like, bringing in the sheep. I'm like, okay, that's funny. I love his scene where he goes...
And then he has a chainsaw duel with
Leatherface, which is brilliant.
Which is incredible.
And I love the scene where he goes and buys chainsaws at a chainsaw, like... So it's like a wall of chainsaws, and he just goes in, and this guy's like wondering, what the hell is this dude
grabbing
doing?
chainsaws off the wall.
He's like weighing out, like, okay, which one's too heavy? Like these really small ones.
Literally slaps down like $1,000 on the table, and just without even saying a word, just walks away with all these chainsaws. It's like, that's incredible.
It's awesome.
And then, but yeah, like there's some amazing stuff. Like Leatherface literally gets like a chainsaw stuck through his chest, and then still is battling Dennis Hopper with a chainsaw through his chest, which is pretty incredible. Mm-hmm. So that was pretty funny to see.
Yeah, Yeah, fair enough. I think we just view this movie a little differently. I get more into the humor, and that's fine. I can see your point, though. Is if you don't want to see something, if you want Leatherface to stay scary, I think this movie will not quite win you over.
I want Leatherface to stay scary. I'm saying this is a watchable film. It's got some fun to it. It's definitely not all bad, but it's too kooky for me. It's too weird, and it's just I don't want funny out of my Texas Chainsaw movies.
That's fair enough. I would say check this one out. If just know what you're getting into. Know it's going to be different than the original.
Yeah.
In tone and everything, but
yeah,
it is a lot of fun.
I wouldn't not recommend it. I would just say beware.
Okay.
Right?
Fair enough.
All right. Why don't you briefly
mention I will briefly
Gore?
mention, because I watched. I'm like you. I spared you this. I watched all of them again, and oh my gosh.
I've seen these years ago. I've tried to forget them.
So, Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3.
Well, now you have to specify.
Yes, I know. I did. New Line Cinema got the rights, and unfortunately, the movie they made was so freaking boring.
Yeah. I guess didn't they co-produce the remake, so I guess they eventually made up for it.
They did. They produced the remake and the beginning. Yeah, with Platinum Dunes.
So yeah, eventually.
Thank God.
Yeah,
but yes, they released the next 4. And I guess the director, I can't really blame him, because apparently he was a director for hire. New Line had the script and said, make this movie, and he tried to make it try to do certain stuff with it, make it gory and scary and stuff, and they cut a bunch of stuff out, and basically the movie made no damn sense, and that's why it is a boring mess pile. The only thing I will probably remember about this movie is Ken Foree and Viggo Mortensen are in it. Mm-hmm. Viggo Mortensen is one of his first roles, which is hilarious to me.
And then moving on to surprising cameos.
Yeah, speaking of first movies for really famous actors, Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger are in the 4th one. And that's the only thing you will ever remember about this terrible, god-awful trash of a movie. Now, you want to talk about Leatherface not being scary anymore. How would you like our heroine to literally yell at Leatherface and say, "You sit the bleep down and shut up"? And then he does. And he goes, "Okay, I'll sit down." No, I'm sorry.
Whiny.
He literally sounds whiny.
Yeah, I remember these movies being so bad. I just wanted to forget about them the minute I saw them.
The 4th one's the most cliched. Every horror cliche you could possibly think of in your head right now, it's in that movie.
Yeah.
It's awful. It almost hits so bad it's good. And I think it would if the main characters weren't so freaking unbearably annoying. I probably could enjoy it on a Jaws 4 level where I just laugh at how god awful it is. But no, I hate it. It pisses me off, its existence. So, yeah, that's the 4th one. Now let's talk about the last really good one.
the last one that's worth, watching.
Yes.
We would say.
I guess there might be someone out there.
Yeah,
fair enough.
It is rotten on Rotten Tomatoes, so I will acknowledge that. But the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the remake, 2003. So yeah, Platinum Dunes decided they would remake every single loved horror movie in the history of horror movies. Almost all of which are complete terrible failures. But for some reason, with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, they seem to reach this middle ground, which said, "Is this unnecessary? Yes, but is it enjoyable, and entertaining? Yeah, it is."
I think part of that is honestly. 1, it's the first one that Platinum Dunes ever did, so that might be part of it. 2, I think, unlike some of those others, like Nightmare on Elm Street, dear God, if we ever get to that, or Amityville Horror.
I know we will.
We will, let's be honest. I will champion that series. It's like they actually understood why the original was so dang good, and they actually got what parts were good.
Well, yeah, if you heard Marcus Nispel didn't want to actually make the movie to begin with. He thought it would be a blasphemy to remake it. But it was the cinematographer, what's his name again?
Daniel Pearl.
Thank you, Daniel Pearl, who actually convinced him, no, we should do it. You just got to do it differently. And he's like, okay. And then he decided to change some major elements, including the look of the movie. He wanted to make it a completely different look. So you'll tell that this movie is more of a traditional Hollywood style.
It's more
movie.
slick.
Yeah.
Hollywood horror, that's for sure. Also, just the writing in various ways are different.
All the characters are different.
Oh, yes.
Which is important. All the characters are different. The entire Sawyer family has been transformed in the Hewitt family, who are also a band of cannibal, crazy people.
Yes, there are more of them.
But there are more of them, although I guess with the new timeline.
Well, we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah, there are plenty of them, and they're all very interesting, and they have different backstories, including especially the standout Arlie Ermy, who I think, according to everybody, was probably the best part of this movie.
Absolutely.
His performance is electrifying. If you like Arlie Ermy from Full Metal Jacket, you get plenty more of that fun.
It's basically it's the same character, but insane and
creepier.
psychotic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he does a great job. He steals every scene he's in. He's electrifying and creepy, and he's unpredictable, which is really important, like we talked about with Leatherface. So yeah, great casting there. And all, like Sean, you mentioned before, all the characters, they're not annoying in any way. They serve their purposes
memorable,
well.
too.
And yeah, and they're based on archetypes of the original. Like I think Eric Balfour of Skyline, I think he was supposed to be like the guy, with glasses from the original.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, but again, they're different enough where you don't like thinking, oh, that's him from the original. Right. Well, we should start with the biggest difference. Like, first off, right off the bat, the hitchhiker has been completely scrapped.
I was gonna say.
Go into it.
So we have a hitchhiker character. That is the only similarity, because instead of him being a member of the family and being a psychotic nut, they have it be one of the victims of a previous group of people that went through this town and were hunted and killed by these group of cannibals.
She's covered in blood. She's
babbling to herself. She seems like she's on something. So they take her in, and unbeknownst to them, they start driving back towards the family.
Which is like, you're going the wrong way.
She freaks out. She's like trying to stall, like get the car off the road, like, you're going the wrong way. Like, and then she pulls a gun out and blows her brains out the back of her head. And that is the catalyst that basically makes it they can't leave, which I love that so much, because instead of doing what all the other Texas Chainsaw Massacres do,
we ran out of gas.
Oh no,
we lost. We crashed.
Our tire fell off or something.
We're gonna help
stupid.
This creepy kid on the road for no reason.
Oh, we'll get to that in a moment. Dear God, but I love that, and it feels like such a real situation. It's like, what would you do in that situation? You would probably do the same thing these people do. It's like, we have a dead body. We're not just going to drive off with this dead body or leave it on the road. We have to report it. The sucky thing is, turns out they're reporting to the psychotic family because they're the only people in this town, what turns out. And it just escalates more and more until they get to the house and all this stuff, much like the original. But it escalates in such a different way that it doesn't feel like a carbon copy in any sort of way.
You actually don't know what's going to happen, which is great. It's all unpredictable again. Which really helps, I think, the movie. What I really liked also, let's talk about the design of Leatherface. Leatherface has been changed a little bit here. In the original, he's more slender. He is more like a traditionally displayed as sort of a little bit more of like a retarded person. I hate using that word. That's the word that
I was trying not to say it earlier.
That's the word that Gunnar Hansen used, so I'm just going to say it.
Fair enough.
That's what he was going for. With the new Leatherface, he is a lot more a silent, like, predator. Like,
oh gosh,
he is, this just the menacing, evil, force that is just has no remorse, absolutely nothing. None of that, like, animalness to him. None of that really, like, oh, I'm just, poor Leatherface. None of that. You get this, he is this big, huge guy who's going after you. In fact, funny, the actor who played him, he was already 300 pounds. He actually wore a fat suit to make him appear over 400 pounds, which is amazing.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, so he's huge, and he's just this giant guy, and he's wielding that chainsaw, and he's running after the characters. Boy, I would not want to be one of them.
Oh, God. It is so terrifying, so ominous.
So great job there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sad that Marcus Nispel, because he came back for the Friday the 13th remake. It's sad that movie's just not as good as this.
I'm sure we'll get to that.
We'll get to that one, too. I do want to say also, I love that they got John Larroquette back to do the title crawl. Title crawl.
Yeah, they don't do the crawl this time. They do sort of more of like a picture montage with you get the sound effects.
Yeah, like crime photos and stuff. It feels like a opening to like one of those crime shows, and it's really effective. Also, I gotta mention, because we didn't talk about the title calls and the other ones. Each one got progressively worse to the point that in 4 it was so freaking lazy. I'm not kidding. Where it's not even a title crawl. It's just a block of text, and they're like, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Some people kill people with a chainsaw, and stuff happened. Yeah. Just watch the damn movie. And so it was so refreshing, honestly, watching these all in order to get like, oh, thank God, we're back to the original.
Yeah. No, it's really well done. I actually, we should talk about the ending a little bit. Spoilers. The ending is interesting too because they actually show the crime scene video of the police, and actually turns out, Leatherface isn't actually dead or gone. He's still lurking in the basement, and he, it's a nice like ominous ending. One of those endings that
it's
leaves it open.
A lot of horror movies end with that stinger ending, but this is like one of the times where I don't mind it. It doesn't feel like we got you or anything like that.
It actually feels kind of rewarding, in the end.
Yeah. I agree. And I like how even at the beginning when they're like first going into the basement at the beginning of the film, because it bookends with that.
Yeah.
You see little like scratches in the walls, like you see like a fingernail embedded in the wall, and you're like, oh, they're like, what's this from? Someone's fingernail's embedded here. And then we see that fingernail go in the wall when one of the characters gets dragged in the basement, which is about as cringy as anything in the original too. Which, remakes get a lot of bad rap, especially modern ones, and this actually pretty much opened the floodgates for horror movies, old horror movies, to get remade. You got Dawn of the Dead after this, and all these others.
Some good,
this
some bad.
This is easily one of the best, I think.
It's definitely the best Platinum Dunes.
Oh, dear God, yeah.
By far, yeah. So...
I mean, I'm partial to the Hitcher, but... No, I'm kidding.
Sean Bean, man.
Sean Bean, as the killer, so much better than Rutger Hauer.
No, but I have to say overall, this movie isn't, like, amazing. You're not going to, like, say, this movie is really necessary, like we said before.
No.
But at the same time, it's an enjoyable film. It does enough different for me to say, I'd watch it on its own. So
yeah,
that's what,
honestly,
that's all it really
I definitely do say check this one out.
Absolutely.
And now here we go.
All right, I'm gonna propose something. I'll quickly go over the beginning. You quickly go over 3D.
All right.
That way we can just get them over.
I'm pretty sure we agree on both of them.
I think
so
we
let's go.
All right, the beginning. All right, imagine the movie that's just a carbon copy of the remake, but done 20,000 times worse, with more annoying characters, a stupider story, and more nonsense. That's the beginning. Like, unfortunately watched it right after the original, so this is really stupid of me, because essentially it was just insulting my intelligence and made me think, oh God, because I was like, I was trying to remember why the movie was so bad, because I think I was remembering the remake, and I was trying to think, well, how could this be that much worse? I mean, it's like the same kind of movie, and I was like, no, the direction is horrendous. Yeah. Some of the angles the director chooses and the way he like shoots the film is really distracting. It's like it takes you out of the movie. I hate direction takes you out of the movie. That's like the number one faux pas you can make as a director is to literally destroy the illusion with your direction, with your distracting direction. This movie does that. All the actors are just I know... I
forgot Jordana Brewster was in the movie until I turned it on, and I was like, wait, Jordana Brewster's in this movie? Oh, wow, I totally forgot she's the lead in the movie.
Yes. I'll just quickly say the good things, and I described this in my review when I wrote it on Letterboxd. It was like two things I liked. Three things, sadly. One of them carried over from the original, which is the design of Leatherface.
Sure.
So I can't really give it credit for that. Arlie Ermey's back, and he's still entertaining, so good stuff. And Steve Jablonsky did the score, and I liked the score.
I like his scores for sure. He's a great composer.
Yeah, so that was good. Other than that, terrible. You don't want to see this movie. There's no reason to watch this over the remake.
I agree. This is like, what if the remake was crap?
Yeah, it's like, hey, here's the alternate reality where they remade Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it was terrible. Because you could watch this as a remake of the original. It's like the same movie. Yeah.
It is a different director. Marcus Nispel did not come back for this one. It should be mentioned, to be fair. No, I'm not going to blame him for this, obviously.
Even though I don't think Marcus Nispel...
He's not an amazing director, but God, I'm sure he would have done something better than this guy. It would have been a little more interesting.
Well, yeah, it's the director of Battle LA and Wrath of the Titans and
Ooh.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, so It's not like this guy went places.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
let's just say,
Sure.
yeah, this movie's not good. 3D.
All right, Texas Chainsaw 3D. So for some god knows reason,
They made a Texas Chainsaw movie in 3D.
well, yeah, one of the many weird things about this movie, Shane. So yes, like you said, it has become a gimmick
all right,
now.
explain what it is, because that's
Okay,
probably
yes.
the most confusing thing.
So this movie, instead of following the line of the remake, now decides it wants to be a direct sequel to the original classic film, ignoring anything
It
else
seems
that
to
was
be a
made
trend
before.
these days to like, hey, let's delete all the bad movies and try and make a sequel that
They
lives up
used-
to the original.
The first time I can think of this happening is like Halloween H2O.
And now they're
they
doing
did
it
that.
again with Halloween,
I
which
guess-
is hilarious.
I know. That thing, there's so many damn reboots in that series. But anyway, yeah, so it's a direct sequel. Now, follow this line of logic, if you will. So the original takes place in the 70s, correct?
Yes.
Shane, I am right? Okay.
1973.
Correct. Okay. Now, they don't say when this movie takes place, but from the age we have at the beginning, we are introduced to there's a baby character that is still alive. The whole family.
And Leatherface is still
Leatherface. So
not only alive, but pretty agile.
So, a couple things. First of all of a sudden, there's like a buttload more people in this house than there was in the original film. They just appeared out of nowhere. This is supposed to be the next day after Sally
There's like
escapes.
20 new people. Just
So,
there.
I guess she escaped in the daytime. This might be the next day. I'll
she
allow
escaped
him
in the
one.
evening in the original.
Okay, you're right. It's
Right?
the evening. I think. Yeah. Okay. We'll say it's the evening.
Evening or
I'm gonna
morning.
give him one day. I'm gonna give him
Just
one
gonna-
day.
Yeah, give him a day.
So let's say it's the evening, fine. So about 6 more people appeared in this house that weren't there in the original.
And cops show up.
Cops show up, and then a bunch of rednecks from Texas, because Texas only has rednecks apparently. I guess. And they show up and burn the house down. Leatherface somehow gets out. We don't see this happen, but we know he gets out, obviously. And then there's this baby outside and gets adopted by one of the rednecks, who I guess isn't as bad as the rest. And they basically... So it cuts to the future where she is in her 20s.
Yeah.
Now here's where it gets confusing for me, Shane. Maybe you can explain this.
I'll do my best.
She and many other characters use smartphones in this movie. Yeah. And I think that if this takes place in the early 90s... Now, I might just be totally crazy, but they didn't have smartphones in the early 90s.
And
I
they
don't
have like
believe.
iPhone 4s in this movie, which is really
Yeah.
distracting.
Why? Now, and it'd be one thing if they just were that stupid. I would almost give it a little more credit than this, because the movie blatantly lies. It hides the date. Like we have later on. So she's like trying to figure out. She like finds out she's related to the Sawyer family and all this stuff. And she's doing research, and she gets these newspaper headlines where the year is literally blocked out. It says like August 20th, then there's like white blocked out, or it's like out of frame. Just the year is like cut off by the edge of the frame. So they're blatantly lying to you guys.
Well, it's just
And
laziness.
it's so, yeah, it is. It's lazy, and it's just insulting. It's like, do you really think I'm that stupid?
Yeah.
Like, come
I
on.
can't add.
Yeah, I can't do basic freaking math and add 20 years.
But summing it up,
This movie is... It's basically a really dumb sequel, and basically it turns out the main heroine sides with Leatherface in the end, because I guess the cops are worse than Leatherface, a
remember
psycho
the cops
killer
being really
who
stupid
kills...
in this movie, too.
Who, by the way, kills all of her friends. They're all dead. But she's like, well, you're my cousin, so that's fine that you killed my friends.
I'm going to take care of you now for some reason.
Do your thing, cuz. She literally says that. She throws him his chainsaw and says, do your thing, cuz.
And then he cuts the guy's arms off.
Yes.
And she's just like, yeah, violence.
Yeah, it's pretty stupid, guys. Yeah. Oh, and the 3D is so painfully noticeable when you're watching 2D. I mean, it's obviously noticeable in theaters, but oh my god, is it bad? It's so obvious. It's like Friday the 13th Part 3 is what everyone's reminding me of. But anyway.
All right, then
Now
have
we
the
get on to
latest
the
movie,
brand new one
Leatherface.
that I guess went to a couple theaters. I don't know
It
where.
had a one-day release in theaters back in early October, and then was released on VOD just
Okay.
pretty recently. So This movie, I'll do the best of my ability to describe what it's
Go
about.
ahead.
And this will be a spoiler-free because it's a new movie. We'll just give the basic premise. Basic premise is you have the Sawyer family again. This is a prequel to the original now. So this is like the official prequel. You have the Sawyer family who is discovered by the police to be abusing their children. Wow, big shock. And their children are taken away and put into a house, basically a sane asylum for children, basically.
Yeah.
And so what happens is eventually these kids break out, big surprise, and it's kind of following their misadventures through the countryside, and that's essentially the movie. So yeah, spoiler free.
Maybe they all sound like a Spielberg and like Scooby Doo misadventures for the countryside.
I could say like a murder spree, but
that does sound more like a horror movie.
Yeah.
I know. I was just
not to spoil too much.
It was really funny.
All right, Sean, what did you think of Leatherface? Again, spoiler free.
It's definitely not even close to the worst of the series. I thought it was meh. I liked some of the ideas it had of where to take Leatherface's character or where to say his character came from.
Yeah, it definitely changed everyone's
Yeah.
idea of Leatherface. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
Not saying anything.
Oh,
more.
absolutely. I think it's not a bad looking film for a
No, it does
pretty
not.
cheap,
It doesn't.
just thrown out there
It doesn't
movie.
look like an independent movie.
No, it's nicely filmed. Except for the beginning. Didn't the beginning look a little more cheaper? Like, it was like the first 10-15 minutes when they were in the 50s. Looked like a Children of the Corn sequel. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh wait, we're gonna actually try.
Yeah, I don't know.
It was really weird. It looked like someone completely different came in and filmed the rest of the movie. But anyway, yeah, I mean, there are things I like. I just think it's forgettable. I think it's going to be the thing. It's going to be like the third Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. Both called Leatherface, or both starting with Leatherface, I guess, to be accurate. It's like, these are the forgettable ones. These are the vapor ones in the series where it just goes one ear out the other within a couple days.
Yeah, I mean, this movie isn't super memorable. Isn't super. Not going to change the way you feel about the franchise or anything. But as just a middling effort in the movie, it's not going to harm you. It's a harmless film. It has some things I kind of liked, some things I didn't like, but it balanced out in the end. And it was just like an okay movie, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't like super bored. I was super bored towards the beginning, but once they kind of went out, started their adventures out in the woods, then I started to be a little bit more interested. And yeah, the movie's pretty predictable. Sean and I both predicted major plot points before they happened, but
Yes.
it's okay because the movie wasn't horrible, right? And I think that's all I require from these movies now. It's kind of sad that for sequels of like these franchises that all I really require is them not to be insulting, but that's where we are right now.
What I will say about even Texas Chainsaw, even though it's completely crap crazy, at least they didn't just remake the original again, because except for 2, every movie come up to that point was the same darn plot.
Same plot.
Yeah, so I can give these movies at least that. And this one better because it didn't piss me off with the timeline. Yeah. It's a sad thing because the original's so great. And, like the Halloween series or the Nightmare on Elm Street series or Friday the 13th, even, as long as that's been going, it's actually like in flux. It's like it goes up and down. It's like, yeah, you got some bad ones in there, but then you got some pretty good ones, and then you got some more, and then you get some good ones. This one is just like, you have this, like, first 2 good, down, peaks, down. And it's just, that's kind of depressing, especially coming. I guess we can mention, sadly, this is the year Tobe Hooper actually passed away, so it's sad this movie couldn't have been better. I think that would have been great for his legacy if it had actually been good. But at least it doesn't insult his legacy.
No, it's not the worst. Which is good.
Yeah. I do want to just throw some out there, because I don't think people know him as well as like maybe other horror directors. Tobe, he was a fantastic director. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is, of course, his best film, but he made some other really good ones. I would say check out Poltergeist. That was a collaboration with Spielberg. We'll talk about that sometime. Also, check out Eaten Alive. He did Salem's Lot, was a TV miniseries based on a Stephen King book. Also, check out The Funhouse, which even someone, Gene Siskel, actually recommended. And Invaders from Mars is actually a pretty decent remake of a 50s movie. He was a very talented horror director. Probably should be remembered more than he is, I think. But yeah, definitely check out his films. And as for this series, final thoughts? Shane, do you have any?
Well, like I said, the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre is my favorite slasher movie to this day. Straight up slasher movie. And we're defining slasher movie as evil guy with weapon attacking, innocent people. That's basically what
basically, yeah.
Was, right?
Weapon, it has to be some sort of like
sharp
weapon. It can't be a gun or something.
No, no guns. But slasher meaning
yes, something that can slash into someone. Yes.
Yeah. So, of all of those movies, this is my favorite. I mean, there are a lot of good ones out there, but I think this one just combines the right amount of atmosphere, of suspense, of thrilling elements, of things that personally creep me out. Fantastic direction. It's all here, and it's really very skillfully done.
Yep. This is my. If we're gonna say what favorite is, it's probably my third favorite slasher film. Favorite horror movie, Halloween. Always love that one.
Oh no, Sean, you have a different opinion?
I know, weird. Oh my god. And I have a soft spot for Nightmare on Elm Street. But
How dare you.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's one of the best. Definitely see this. I do say check out 2, and definitely check out the remake. I know you said check out 2, but I'm like, you know what, 2 actually pretty good. And the remake, absolutely, really good.
Yeah.
None of the others really are that interesting. Sorry, I wish I could say more, but wish I could say they were, but they are not.
All right.
But that is our talking for that. I'm sorry this came out after October, but hey, we just didn't have time to record it before.
We're getting on contract now, and we'll do our best to get reviews out on time.
Yep, we do have another special late Halloween episode coming up, so look out for that.
Yeah, look out for that. Stay tuned to this channel for more podcasts. Thank you guys for listening. Like, comment, and subscribe as always. And we will catch you guys next week.
All right, and see ya.
Yeah, see ya.